Today we're taking a look at Tobot H. You can actually see the letters on the side of the car here. Tobot H and J, or as the license plate names reveal, Hook and Jab. And this is a nifty little set. Got obviously Hook on the left, Jab on the right, and they have their own little headmaster dudes. And yeah, they are the typical kind of Tobot stuff where they're somewhat stylized, I think modeled after real world vehicles, Hyundai stuff obviously because of the logo. Just little like sedan type vehicles. They're both I can't tell if these are both the same, like different models of the same car, or if they are the same car. The actual like molding and everything looks the same. The only real difference between them seems to be the what's going on the roof here. I mean, obviously the colors are different. You know, you've got the red one and the blue one, but the actual like the grill section is designed slightly differently on Jab or J, and you've got like the bars up here and like the roof rack. But like I feel like in terms of the overall shape of the cars, maybe they are supposed to be different models of the same vehicle. I could be totally wrong. I don't know cars, but that's kind of the impression I'm getting with these two. And they look good. Each one is pretty much their primary color with some accents here and there, like the gray trim going along the sides, silver on the rims, and then some detailing for like the lights and grille, and even the tail lights. So yeah, they also roll pretty darn well. Each of them rolls pretty darn well. And as I said, like the main difference, I keep bumping this stupid light. As I said, the main difference between the two is just the colors and the sculpting. Like, yeah, from the back, they're both pretty much identical. So it's like the sculpting and everything is the same. It's just one's red, one's blue, one hat, and they both have like slightly different front sections, like in the grille and the roof section. So that's about all I can really say about the vehicle modes. But we do have these little fellows. I don't know whether these are Hook and Jab or what, but this is kind of keeping with the typical Tobot thing that they've been doing lately with the headmaster thing, where these become heads for robot modes. They're very simple. All they can do is articulation on both is just look left and right and ball jointed shoulders, and that's it. The bodies are like one solid piece for both of them, so you're not really going to get much in the way of posability, but they're fine for what they are. They're cute. The main differences between them just being the H and J on the chest, respectively, as well as the helmet designs. And I'm of two minds with this, because like I prefer the coloring of this guy, but I prefer the shape and the kind of goggle shape of this guy. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, they're pretty nifty little guys for what they are. They don't really do anything, but they're nifty. And I just realized I really should have grabbed Tobot Z, if for no other reason than to show him with these other fellows. And you can kind of see right off the bat that the design for them has changed. Like, we'll just grab these two because they're easiest for me to reach. So yeah, the actual design of the inner headmastery robot is different. And I'll show this just to, get the point across when we get to robot modes. But like, he unfortunately, Tobot Z, these, anything like X, Y, or Z really, they're not compatible with Hook and Jab here, which it stinks, because the body shape is a little bit different. You can see that the legs are spaced apart wider, and the legs being spaced apart wider means that like the positioning of those bits for where they kind of click in for the robot mode, not the same. So yeah, I tried, and I'll show you when we get there, but like he does not work with these cars, which really kind of sucks. And vice versa, you cannot put either of these guys into Tobot Z's robot mode, which again, we'll see that in a little bit. But there we've got all of them, and you can actually have these guys store in the vehicle modes. So we're going to take J and do this. Going to rotate the head to the left. For H, you want to rotate it to the right. And the reason being is it's this little cavity on the underside here where they store. And you just slide the little guy in, and he will kind of click in place. He won't fall out. But the reason you want to do this a specific way is because I found that you actually want the back of the tiny robot facing this darker gray part of the cavity, because they can go in this way. It will still work, but something about the geometry in there, like it works just fine with J here, but with H or Hook, whatever, this guy is a pain to get out of that cavity if you don't have it oriented specifically with the arms kind of tucked back and folded into the into this specific orientation. Like I'm not going to show it, and you can see it doesn't get in the way of rolling. But like I'm not going to show it with this guy because it is such a pain to get him out of there. But yeah, if you don't line it up this way specifically with the arms going towards this darker gray plastic, then he is just terrible to try and get out of there. Like he does, again, holds in there just fine. And here, if we look at it here, you can see that the spots are mirrored, which is why you rotate them in different directions. But like something about the way this comes together, you just have more room to kind of push him this way, and he'll just pop right out. And if you have the arms going this way with the head turned, then it is so much harder to leverage him out of there. And unlike Jab, you don't have this big horn and like back of the helmet that you can grab onto to just pull him out. So you really need to use that leverage to get him out of that cavity. So yeah, that stinks. Anyway, let's get Jab off to the side here and leave Hook here because they're the same size. So I'm just going to use one for actually. Realistically, I should use the red one because it'll show up on the background better. So yeah, we're just gonna pop him in there, and then he will sit off to the side, and then we'll bring Jab back in here and get him all situated. Okay, so there we go. Now let's do our size comparisons. Just angle this down. Maybe that's too much angling down. Yeah, there we go. I am a professional. Though to be fair to myself, I never actually claimed to be a professional. All right. So there we've got the car and the little guy. Bring in our size comparisons. Dinobot, Artal Deluxe, and Samus. So there you can see that the car is not as big as a lot of Tobots, but not tiny. And the little guy is definitely a little guy. Get these out of here. And bring in Burnout. And yeah, that makes a little bit more noticeable just how, even though these are small for Tobots, they're still pretty big cars. There we go. And now let's do some other comparisons. Let's bring in... Oh, let's see. What? Pardon me while I make a mess off screen. Let's bring in some components of Triton. So there is Tobot Z from Triton specifically, because these are again smaller, which is why I chose these, because they're smaller versions of the regular Tobot toys. There is X, again part of Triton, and last part of Triton there is Y. So yeah, they're small, but not as small as the Triton vehicles. Let's get you out of the way, bring in yet another red vehicle, my continuous favorite, and go to Tobot Z, or no, not Z, Tobot V Wild Chief. There's that. And boy, there are a lot of red vehicles. I didn't even really think about how many of these things I picked out that were red. But there is Hello Carbot Repos. And yeah, she's significantly bigger, but well, you'll understand why when we get to the transformation and all of that. But before we do that, we of course got to do that most important of size comparisons. Here is J, and by extension H, or Jab, and by extension Hook, next to the duck tank. Okay, almost time for the fun part. But before we get to that fun part, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel and you would like to support me, I do have a Ko-fi or Patreon, links to both at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Otherwise, you could always do the non-money related support, which is also much appreciated. You know, typical YouTube like, comment, share, subscribe kind of stuff. Now, to transform H and J, Hook and Jab, I'm going to leave these guys where they are for now. We'll deal with those in a little bit. But just know that you can keep them stored in their little spots if you want. Now, first thing, I'm going to grab Jab, and grab the Jab and take this off, and this will just go off to the side. And let's start with Jab, because Jab is the one that's going to show up easiest on this backdrop. And yeah, this is definitely what I would consider the fun part. So, I'm going to start by splitting this back section and swinging it around. There's like this joint here that allows it to swing. And this originally I found was a little bit tough to do until I realized there's this little tab right here that it's not much, but it gives you just enough, without even using a fingernail, it gives you just enough to grip onto to pull and pop this apart, which is what you got to do. So yeah, if you have this guy, this set, and you want to, transform, just get a finger on that little tab, and this guy has it too, just on the, right there, as opposed to right there. So you can do it on both of them. Just grab that, pop, and then swing this around. Now we are on our way, and we want to take this piece here, and I find it's easiest, I mean, you can pull it anyway, but it's easier to just kind of get a finger in this gap here and push to rotate it around, like so. I'm going to take this chunk here and pop it up. There's actually, the little clip is right here, and there's a little tab that goes in there, so that's the point where it connects. So just pop that up, swing this back, and this will settle right in here. There's even a little notch right there that this piece settles on top of. It doesn't clip in this position, but it does settle nicely. And now you can disconnect here. There's this little tab on this piece here. Zoom in a little bit more here. This piece down here, this dark gray piece, there's a tab that goes into this other dark gray piece. You want to pop that out. And it's not that hard to pop out, but it's surprisingly difficult to pop in. I find what works is when you get this into place, you kind of want to come at an angle, and kind of angle it up and in, and that will or rather up and out, and that will make it a little bit easier to get clipped in, because that is surprisingly difficult to clip in place. But just pop that out. And now this whole assembly here can swing down a little bit. You don't need to swing it down all the way just yet. Want to rotate here, and then this joint here now can click back 3 clicks. I mean, it can go more than that, but that's like straight up and down. And when you're going into car mode, you want to do 3 clicks. And you can see that this piece here is actually angled in a way that allows it to line up with this black piece. Like this dark gray piece here is angled so that when you bring this down, it lines up really nicely. So that's actually surprisingly involved engineering for something like this. Now we can rotate this whole assembly 90 degrees, rotate this up, rotate this down, and then I like to bring the leg out a click. I'm going to take this orangey yellowy piece, flip out this tab, which is a little bit tricky to do, but bring that out. And now this is on a telescoping joint. You kind of pull it out. It's spring loaded, so it will snap back into position, but pull it out, rotate it, and you're going to have to rotate it this way, because if you try this way, it's going to knock into the tires. So just rotate it around, bring it in, and there's a little, like a little tab thing here that will clip in on the underside here. So swing it around and then flip that in, and then bring this up the rest of the way to make a knee pad. And that is a leg all done. Now for the upper body, I'm going to take, you can see which one needs to move because it's the one that does not have the gray on it. So you want to grab side window works, or side mirror works, but it's kind of grab up here and pull. And that will untab from here, and you can swing this around a little bit past 180 degrees, like so. Now this is actually tabbed into the windshield here, so you want to kind of pop that down. Oh wait, no, it's not going to pop down because of this. So here's the cavity where the little guy was. There's this panel here. I'm going to grab this along with the wheel. The whole thing swings down out of the way like that. And now with this out of the way, now we can pull down here to untab. You can kind of see there's a little tab right in there that kind of clips into that little gap down there. So unclip that. With that unclipped, now split the front end of the car and straighten all of that out. And we can bring out the fist while we're at it. And for some reason, bringing out the fist on J or jab is way more difficult than it is on the other one. I don't know why, but there's a tab here. You just pull and then keep pulling and it will click into place. But like, it's really tricky to get this fist to click into place. It does go, as you can see, but just this one's tricky. Now take this whole half of a car. You can see there's this little circular piece here. I want to take this whole half of the car and pull it out, and you'll see this sink in once it's pulled around. You want to leave it pulled out like that, but you want to rotate this around 180 degrees. And this needs to be pulled out because that gives you the clearance to take this whole assembly and swing it up. And with that swung up, we can rotate this around, swing this down, and there we go. You can probably see where this is going. At least I hope you can. Now, H or hook is the exact same deal, so I'm just going to go through it real quick. It's, well, not the exact same deal. It's basically the same deal, but mirrored. And the reason it's mirrored is, I feel like, pretty obvious. But yeah, swing that around. Again, unclip this, bring that down, untab this, swing that down, straighten that out, rotate it, straighten that out, bring that out, get this pulled out, rotated, clicked in place, and pushed up. And we'll just rotate this around while we're here. Now, since this is already folded down, we don't have to worry about the disconnecting up here, but we do want to swing this around. So swing that around, pop this down, disconnect this, and straighten this out. Pull this down, and this one cooperates way better. Pull this out, rotate it 180 degrees, swing this up, swing this down, And there we go. And now we can take H and J, bring them together. And they will clip together here, here, and back here. And that gives us an incomplete symmetrical docking robot body. This stuff, it does go on him. You don't strictly need it. You can just leave it like this because you can see you've got fists on either side. And you can, just as an example, take one of these fellows and plonk them down. And there you've got your robot mode. So you don't really need these pieces. But they do have places to go. So let's get him out of there. We'll deal with that more in a minute. You want to take this and split it in half. Pop these pieces off of these pieces, and there's just a little peg that goes in there. This will close up, and then this just slides into the fist. That just goes in like that. Same deal here. Pop that off, put that up, slide that into the fist. I feel like these are unnecessary, but it is what it is. And now, for these pieces, they stay on the same sides. You don't have to like switch them around or anything like that, but basically you pop them apart, fold them in half, and then this peg hole that the glove was pegged into will now peg in up here. And this will go through this little gap on the outside here. So just line that up and peg it down. And same deal here, fold it in half, line it up, peg it down. And there is the completed body. Now we can do hook and jab, hook or jab, and do their thing. So these guys, you just tuck the arms back. You want to open up the head and then rotate the face around, close it back up, and that gives them the big robot head or big robot face. And you can kind of see the main difference is just they don't have a mouth, they have a mouth plate. But there is H. J is the same deal. Fold the arms back, open up the helmet, rotate that 180 degrees, and close it back up. So there we go. And then all you do is pop them in. You've got the little bits, the little openings on the bottoms of the feet. And when these things are rotated into place, you can see there are these little pegs on the little white joints right in there. And that's just what these little bits grip onto. So pop in H or hook, and that is what that looks like. Or and pop in J or jab, and that's what that looks like. This is the mode that, or this is the version that comes packaged in. That's generally how I display them, but it's, you know, you can do it either way. I mainly do it this way because it's easier to keep this guy stored in this mode than it is this guy. Because the way you can store it is you just open up this flap and put them in their usual spot and close the flap again. Like, that's all you do. Which is great. I love that they can do that, but the problem is with this guy, because he's got this really big horn, that kind of gets in the way. So if we push this in and go to close this, you can see that it kind of sticks out a bit versus this one that lays flush. You can kind of work around it by angling it so that the horn kind of goes into this little, there's like this little divot here. So if you can angle it like that, then it sits a little bit more flush. So it's a little closer to being lined up, but I don't like doing that because I feel like that's going to risk the paint on the horn. So generally, I just do this, and that is how I have them displayed. And yeah, this is Robot Twin Punch. And this is really cool. I like this a lot. I was a little bit disappointed when I first got the set because the articulation, in particular in the upper body, is incredibly disappointing, and we will get to that. But I do really like the way this guy looks, and the transformation is interesting and fun. I do legitimately enjoy transforming this thing back and forth quite a bit. And he's neat. I like the design. I like the symmetrical split down the middle, the symmetrical docking design. That's really cool. One thing I wish that this did was allow you to basically flip. So like I feel like if you could do this for the red little guy and then like flip it around somehow and have the blue guy in there and have him like facing this way, I think that would be really cool, so that like the red and blue kind of alternate what side they're on. But as you could see, that's not going to work the way this thing is designed. It's fine. Mostly it's just like just thinking about the that one web diver figure that I used to have that allowed you to actually change which side which side was which as you like switch the heads around, or you could keep them the same. I just liked having that variability. Yeah, this is really cool. I like how all of it comes together. You get a lot more revealed detail here, but then like you still have the car bits that you can see on like particularly from the side and the back. And this is I'm not super into the big almost entire half of a car hanging off of each shoulder, but it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. It doesn't really get in the way too bad. It bulks him out from the side a little bit, otherwise he'd just be kind of like flat, so I get that. Though you got these really bulky, if you look at him from the side, legs now. And it's just it is a cool design. It's just there are some things I wish it did better. But again, I think it's really neat how this all splits apart and comes back together and merges and everything. It's very cool for what it is. I still don't really think that the gloves and these bits are necessary because, as I said, like he already has hands. They're already there. So you could just not have done these and not do these. And you'd have, you'd still have a cool robot, but he's hook and jab, also known as twin punch. So of course he's going to have boxing gloves. And it's fine. It's just, I like the color breakup you get here a little bit better because you just get, a little bit of white in the forearms. Whereas when you do this, it's mostly red or mostly blue and black, which you already have up in the forearm. So the only thing you get is this tiny strip of light blue, which you get a little bit down here as well. And like, that's it. That there, and then the eyes. That's like all the light blue you get in this entire thing. And I just think that it's a little bit more visually interesting color-wise when you've got the white fists. And like they're molded. They are fists, so you don't need these at all. But then if you don't put these on his, if you don't give him the gloves, then they don't really have anywhere else to go. So you're kind of stuck. If you really, really want to, you can pop these off, put them back together, open it back up, and basically just put all of this back into its little top of the car configuration, and this can just go off to the side so you can keep it all clumped together, or you can technically peg it back here. So if you want to store this without potentially losing it, you could do that, which isn't great, but it gives you something to do. Now, for the head sculpt or head sculpts, they are exactly the same in terms of sculpt as the little guys. It's just that now they have little face plates and they are sitting on top of a big robot. So here we've got the red one. Again, cool helmet design with the faceplate. I like the goggles and the gold stripes and the black fin going down the center. And blue one also looks good, though it's more of like a headband or earphones black strip rather than like a mohawk. I don't know. And the goggles here look more like Coke bottle glasses, which it's fine. I'm not like bothered by it, but I think this looks cooler. Yeah, that is face sculpts. And now something that I do like doing with this guy is if I'm going to display him at a bit of an angle, I like to have the red one here if the blue side is going to be a little bit more facing forward, and if I'm going to angle it this way, I prefer to do the blue one, because I just feel like that breaks it up a little bit more, you know? Like, emphasize the red but with the blue head, emphasize the blue but with the red head. I think something about that just works in terms of like color balancing. But we are going to stick with the red. We're just going to pop him back in there and close this back up. And we are going to talk about articulation. And the reason why I did not put these bits back on is because I want to talk about that when we get to the shoulders. But for the articulation, the head swivels, so it just rotates back and forth without this junk in the way. Actually, we'll put one on. So without this junk in the way, the head can go all the way around. With this junk in the way, that impedes the head rotation. So with the head rotation impeded, like you can rotate, but it kind of bangs into stuff. So yeah, with those in the way, you're not going to get the same level of head rotation. Put that in there. Now, for the arms, the reason why I kept these pieces off is because he does not have any outward motion, and this piece is not the problem. As you can see up here, this just stops. Like, this moves up for the transformation, but like that is the extent to which it can move. Unless you carve this out entirely, it's not gonna work. So yeah, you're kind of stuck. And that disappoints me. I really don't like how that doesn't let you angle out. You can rotate forward and back. This does get in the way though, and you're not going to be able to rotate up any further than this, not because of this, but because of this little piece here is knocking into the dark gray piece back there. And that's as far back as you can really go because this is whacking into that. Or you can go back a little further if you bend the elbow, but yeah, you're not going to get a ton of arm articulation out of this guy, which stinks. You can move this out of the way, but that doesn't really help. Like, that's not going to make a difference. The arm does not, you don't have bicep rotation. That is another disappointment. Like, the bicep is thick enough, I feel like they could have put a swivel in there, but maybe they didn't because of all the heavy-duty ratchets and stuff. But like, that bumps me out. You can't go out, and you can't rotate the bicep. For a guy that's supposed to be, you know, presumably some kind of boxer, I feel like having limited arm articulation is a bit of a misstep. But you do get elbow articulation that can bend to just under 90 degrees. It can kind of go like half a click up past that, but it's barely noticeable and it's kind of easy to nudge it out of the way. It can also bend backwards for some reason. That's not even for the transformation. It goes this way for the transformation, so I don't really understand why it's able to go all the way back like that, but whatever. Again, no bicep swivel. The wrists don't articulate at all. You can't move them or rotate them or anything. You do not get any waist rotation, but that kind of makes sense given how this guy comes together. I wonder if you can fudge it, though. Like, split him at the bottom and maybe rotate these pieces a little. No, that's not going to work. So yeah, because of this in the center, you're not going to rotate the waist. If you have the boxing gloves on, you can kind of articulate the fingers. They just open and close. I don't know. You can do that. And actually, I'm noticing forward motion on this is also limited if you've got this piece in the way. Kind of catches. Let me bring these pieces back in here and double check that. So rotating this up, yeah, you can see this catches on this. You can bring this down to rotate it, so you can kind of work around it, but those get in the way there. The legs, though, the leg articulation is actually pretty decent. I'm going to get the arm out of the... get both arms out of the way. So for the legs, they can go forward past 90, back to about here, or well, they can go pretty much to 90 and start knocking into this, but if you rotate this out of the way, they can at least hit 90 without knocking into anything. You've got outward motion goes to there. It does not go all the way out, but I feel like that's enough. You've got thigh rotation. There is a knee up top here, which can go to kind of soft detents, or you can use the ratcheted bit down here that goes a lot further. And that gets you, either one gets you to 90. You can kind of go past 90 if you angle things a certain way, but that's, I don't know if that's really worth it. But you can kind of get around it. Also, if you really wanted to, you could bend this clicky joint forward. There's that. Also, in addition to the thigh swivel that's above this joint, there's also a secondary joint below that joint. So either way, you've got a swivel that's above, you've got a swivel above each of the knees. Personally, I prefer to stick with the clicky joint because this isn't very strong, and also if you bend this, it looks like his thigh is incredibly tiny, but if you bend this, the proportions are a little bit better. So that is all of that. You don't get any more movement down here. You can like rotate the foot in, but that's it. You don't get any tilt or anything like that. And so yeah, that's it for the articulation, but the leg articulation is pretty good. Also, I want to say, I think this is cool how with this piece, when this is out of the way, you can actually rotate down here because of this whole spring-loaded assembly thing for the transformation, which is a little bit weird. But clicking this in locks that in place, so you don't have to worry about grabbing him from down here to rotate the thigh. I appreciate that. But yeah, that is Twin Punch in his fully combined mode. That is his articulation. His accessories are just boxing gloves and like things that go onto his shoulders, but this is cool. It just took me a while to warm up to it because of that lack of arm articulation. That is very, it still disappoints me, but it's okay. I just wish they did a little bit more in the arms for articulation. Actually, before we move on to size comparisons, I mentioned I was going to talk about this. So take Tobot Z's little head guy, fold him up as you do, and if you try to put him in here, he doesn't fit. Like the arms don't fit back there because the dimensions are just slightly different. The chest is like rubbing up against here. He just does not fit in, like the legs don't even reach the pegs. So you can't really, like you can kind of nestle him in there if you really want, but like that's as good as it's going to get. And that does not look great, and it's not actually in there. Conversely, we bring in Tobot Z here. These guys do not work with Tobot Z either. You try and peg them in, they don't, again, like they don't work because the spacing on these little gaps isn't the same. Those little pegs in there are closer together. So these guys do not fit in. So unfortunately, these are not cross-compatible, and that bums me out. But since we're here, let's just do a quick side-by-side with these two so you can see how Twin Punch, fully combined, towers over Tobot Z. It really bums me out that they're not backwards compatible with those headmastery gimmicks, but oh well. For whatever reason they changed the dimensions. I don't really understand why. I feel like they could have kept them so that you could keep that cross compatibility, but whatever. But they changed it. So anyway, moving on to normal size comparisons. Here is Twin Punch with the usual size comparison figures. And yeah, combined up, this guy is rather big, which, you know, stands to reason because Tobot combiner. Go. That out of the way. Just because, in case anyone is curious, this guy's height is approximately, roughly commander height to the head. Don't worry, he's next. We're gonna get to him. But yeah, I'd say approximately commander height. But let's bring in our other comparisons here. So here is Wild Chief. And you can see that he is much taller than Wild Chief. Bring in Triton here. Here he is with another Tobot combiner, and Triton is a little bit taller. I mean, you know, Triton is also made up of 3 vehicles rather than 2, and comes together in a completely different way. But yeah, Triton is about roughly a head, half a head, whatever, taller than Twin Punch. And since we looked at her before, here he is with Helocarbot Repos. And yeah, the Helocarbot figures like Repos and Laranja are bigger than Tobots in many cases. So here he is with Repos. And finally, bring in that most important of size comparisons. Here he is. It's down just a bit. There's Twin Punch with the Duck Tank. And that does it for Tobot Twin Punch. As I said, this is a very cool set. It's just, I'm disappointed in the, we'll switch the heads while we're doing this. I'm disappointed in the arm articulation. But aside from that, I do actually really like this whole thing. The transformation is cool. The option to like switch between the different heads I like. Even if I'm more partial to one over the other, I still think that it's cool that you have options, and I think it does look neat with either one, however you do it. It's a neat set, transformation's fun. I just wish you had more articulation in those arms. And I don't mind these pieces or the gloves because they at least have somewhere to go. In both modes, it's not like Tobot Deltatron where you've got this trailer that just hangs out and has nowhere to go once you've gone into the combined mode. But it's just that articulation. But still, like, after spending a good like week and a half, 2 weeks messing around with this guy, just keeping him at my desk, even though the articulation in the arms is lacking, he still does enough that I don't really mind. And he is fun to mess with. The posing, when you can figure out poses that work with the limited arm articulation, does look good. And like I said, he's just fun to flip back and forth. Like a lot of fun. And I also like that even though the transformation between both sides is exactly the same, or is the same, it's mirrored. So like it's still slightly different. So I can still be a little mentally engaged as I'm transforming him. But yeah, that has been Tobot Twin Punch. What do you all think of this guy? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and you already know what the next video is going to be, so I guess we can all look forward to that.